with an embedded structural coalition era. We have to know how to work it well rather than hearken back to big majorities. Yes, Mr. Modi has got a majority, but that is not the structural era virtually from the demise of Mrs. Indira Gandhi.
So that was Rajiv Gandhi was the last, and
Rajiv Gandhi really was not a planned prime minister. It happened during tragic circumstances.
maybe accidental prime ministers do well.
How bad is the so-called accidental prime minister? You've written a book about it. He got the best growth rates for this country.
Which is true. You know what? Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh did not even know Narasimha Rao was going to be prime minister. In 13 days, he wrote out the liberalization roadmap. If anybody knew he was going to be prime minister, Narendra Modi. He was, he was sure of the results. He knew he was going to win. He knew he was going to even come back. Yet we haven't seen that kind of incremental economic reform. One big bang reform we've not seen from this government.
See, when we talk about economic reform, we have to understand whether the advantage of that reform is going downwards or not. The distribution system is as important. If that, let's say 10% or 8% or 7%, if it gets stuck on the top and if it is not going down, there is something which this government is doing right. So from 2014 to 2019, now we are not talking about anti-incumbency. We are talking about pro-incumbency. And I told you earlier that ultimately the country decides on who is the leadership. So yesterday, one of your colleague channels had a survey. And it's proved that Narendra Modi is he is the highest rating ever, even world rating. So when people see that you are at the rating of, and I totally agree with my friend, that show me 50%. So Narendra Modi's rating is actually 50 plus. And unfortunately, others are down below. I think democracy will do very well if we have a very strong opposition as well. I personally would love to have a very strong opposition, and I'm sure my friend also would like to have. Opposition has to be very, very strong in a democracy which really thrives and works. So, and no government ever is permanent. We all will come and go. Nobody is permanent. But the country remains, so we have to make sure our fundamentals are very strong. And for that, somewhere down the line, something may not be right. I'm nobody to judge on the opposition, but I feel that there are so many issues in this country. If there is only one issue one thrives, what is the issue of opposition? Modi hatao. And that cannot be the issue. If you talk about what are we going to do if at all we come to power, people of this country always look for a roadmap. One mantra will not do. Same thing happened with Indira Gandhi. वो कहते हैं कि इंदिरा हटाओ, मैं कहती हूँ देश बचाओ. That's kind of slogan. So I think somewhere down the line, and like I said that I'm nobody to comment on the opposition, but for the sake of the country, we definitely need a very strong and a vibrant opposition, whichever may be.
Well said. But, the point that he has made, okay, opposition doesn't have a face, fine. But at least opposition should have a narrative apart from Modi hatao.
No, I think the opposition has a narrative. It's a different matter that we've been losing national elections. And that is why there are a large number of states where the opposition rules. The idea of recreating India in a presidential form is uniquely Modiji's. A presidential form of government with over-projection of a single person certainly is happening in our country, but that does not sit well with the parliamentary system at all. Suppose Mr. Modi is rated in the survey which my friend mentioned at 51%. Does it get him anywhere in a parliamentary democracy unless each of his individuals in the BJP wins? It's completely irrelevant, but it seems nice because we like to believe ourselves in a presidential mold. So I think these are matters of projection. Ultimately, if you were today to find very strong regional leaders, and regional leaders were to aggregate their national elections as an aggregation of state elections, and you actually had this one constituency, one person, at least in 500 constituencies, Where would be Mr. Modi with 39%? That's a point to remember. Number two, my friend mentioned trickling down inequality. Just look at, I'm not talking of economic growth now because I've already talked about it. The world's single largest social welfare scheme, a coalition government successfully ran it, which Mr. Modi ji, without acknowledging it, is running now, Manrega. A very big savior, by the way, in COVID, world's largest. The world's largest Bima Yojana, the world's largest food security program, not India's, world's largest. There were 6, 7 schemes like this, derided sometimes as leftist, called sometimes as Cholawala, ridiculed sometimes as a National Advisory Council, but they have become your mainstay. When the banking crisis struck worldwide, it was these schemes which kept India above and afloat. So it is not that you, and the Gini coefficient by which you measure inequality, the largest number of people ever moved above the poverty line were in the 10 years of UPA government. The statistics of the government of India show that the largest number of people, 24%, moved above the poverty line. So I think, again, it's this per se feeling we have because we saw a large number of years of coalition governments. Mr. Modi certainly has a great power of attraction in terms of showing the strength, showing that a single party rule alone is going to be, but that is not necessarily fact.
Fair enough. Last point to you. At the end of the day, Prime Minister Modi may criticize the UPA government or whatever, but he is adopting their welfare schemes, whether it is Narega, whether it is Aadhaar, whether the schemes of the earlier government is what this government is delivering on, you can say. What is the big idea that this government has brought that they are going to take forward?
The big idea is the idea of India, which the opposition always talk about. But idea of India is not only one idea of India. It's a varied idea of India. And Indian democracy is live and thriving. I mean, look at the Supreme Courts. Look at the only issue which I, as a former member of Parliament, and I've been in Parliament for long enough, I just don't understand why Parliament should not function. I think that is where, if I were in the opposition, I would not lose the opportunity, and I'm sure my friend will definitely agree, that question hour, that's your opportunity to put the government on the dock. So even before the question hour starts, you go to the well of the house. If you talk about Manipur, what would have happened if you discuss Manipur after 1 hour, after question hour? At least there is so much you can discuss. I, as a minister, would love, I would ask the opposition, कि भाई क्या है आज? उस समय बीजेपी थी, तो कि नहीं आज भी थोड़ा हल्ला होगा. मैंने कहा हाँ बिल्कुल हल्ला करो. At least हमको responsibility तो कम हो जाती. So I think in all seriousness, you have to use that platform. And again, I said, I'm nobody to teach them. They are very wise people. And nobody can take away from what Rajiv Gandhi doing. I mean, there's a lot of modernization in terms of technology and all. My friend Sam was also here. So nobody is taking away the credit, even for Chandrayaan. Definitely nobody is taking away the credit. The credit is there, but in spite of that, I'm sure you'll agree that there is something right this government is doing. They are getting elected again and again, and there is something not right which the opposition is doing that people are not electing as far as the center is concerned.
I think that is a very good last...
Dinesh bhai, that cuts both ways. That's a dangerous sentence. If electoral validation meant you're doing well, then electoral validation also includes the negative. A lot of things you don't do well enough. And therefore, this electoral validation changes all the time.
Of course,
and there are enough things in democracy which you don't do well, you do well certainly sometimes.
So that's the strength of democracy.
Electoral validation by itself is not a guarantee of being correct.
For the people, of the people, by the people.
On that note, that is a lovely note to end on this Festival of Ideas. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking time out and being with us. Thank you.